actually, on the drinks trolley today. What are you grabbing from the trolley there, Suze?
I just grabbed it because going on holidays, so I thought we could have some sparkling wine. So why not have some English sparkling and a bottle of Night Timber?
Night Timber, very good. Now you're talking.
The rosé one's particularly good, but they're all lovely.
Good. Okay. So that's from the trolley. Today's confession comes from Andrew. Andrew, thank you very much indeed for telling us this story. Father Simon and the Judicious and Worthy Forgiveness Collective. My name is Andrew.
Yes.
And I'm a musician. Since the age of 4, I've played the piano. I've really never stopped since. I'm 56 now, and my career has taken me from the pit of despair to the orchestra pits of professional musical theatre. I'll refrain from reciting my CV as my confession relates to a period in my life before achieving the giddy heights of London's glittering West End, when I was a jobbing piano and keyboard player, glad of each and every gig. At that time, I played keyboards in a duo with a guitarist. Let's call him Steve. Steve wasn't just a guitarist, but a mate and an agent. Not the showbiz type, but the sort who books entertainers for events. And as such, he always put a lot of work my way. The primary nature of which was playing cocktail piano in the bars and restaurants of hotels around Heathrow Airport. A soulless endeavour. This, however, is not the subject of my confession. You see, sometimes Steve would book me to play for unusual and one-off functions, which included dressing as Frankenstein's monster to play eerie organ music at a horror party, or to play the piano accordion whilst yodeling at a Sound of Music-themed party. I had little money then and even less dignity, so I invariably agreed to these booking requests. So imagine how thrilled I was when Steve called with a simple inquiry. Could I play the piano for a wedding, accompanying a singer for just one song? Have I told you lately that I love you? Yes, I said, which is what constituted a contract back then. Several weeks later, the usual gig information was provided, which is to say nothing at all. I managed to ascertain that I was to meet the singer in Cobham, in Surrey, and have a quick rehearsal before heading to the venue. A private chapel on the family's own estate. It all sounded marvellous. The only slight difficulty was that the chapel didn't have a piano, so I'd have to use my trusty but heavy electric piano. I called the singer to arrange to meet her on the high street in Cobham. This was before the days of smartphones or sat-nav, but I printed a map and navigated to the agreed location. I was only slightly worried when I couldn't see anyone matching her description. So I called her on my Nokia. She said she was waiting but couldn't see my car. After a lengthy exchange, the truth of the situation slowly dawned. She was in Chobham, not Cobham.
Oh, no.
They're both in Surrey, but about 15 miles or half an hour apart.
Oh, no.
Why hadn't Steve made this clear? Anyway, the singer and I agreed to head to the chapel and meet there instead. No time to panic, but no time to rehearse either. At least it was a straightforward tune, and we both knew it. It'll be fine. When we arrived at the venue, the real panic set in. The private chapel was in the middle of a private lake, half a private mile from the private car park. There was no way I could carry my stage piano in its flight case that distance, and the wedding started in 15 minutes. Plan D, I'll play the chapel organ, that'll be fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No.
The organ was rather small, fanar, just, says Andrew, just 2 octaves, and was positioned in such a way that the pipes obstructed my view of the singer. Not to worry, she'd just have to follow me. Anyway, through a little window, I could see the bride in a private boat making her way to the private island.
What?
Our song was for the bridal entrance, so it was now or never. As the congregation rose to their feet, I played the introduction. At least I pressed these 6 notes down, which I required. To my horror, the bellows slowly wheezed their way to life, and over what seemed like an hour, the first musical sound emerged with all the speed of squeezing a nearly empty tube of toothpaste. Instinctively, I played the next chord with just one finger in each hand. The bellows coped better with this strategy, and so I continued to play the whole song in this way, like a child. It sounded hideous. I had a toy Bon Tempi organ from Woolworths when I was 5. That would have done a better job. Imagine a 6-year-old on their first recorder. That's what I sounded like. Eventually, the nightmare was over, and I fled to catch a boat back to the shore before the ceremony was over, and I was lynched. As I boarded the tiny private boat, I reached for my private Nokia and called Steve, and I did some bellowing of my own. So the forgiveness, obviously, I need partly from Steve, who wasn't expecting the torrent of abuse he received on that day. But I asked forgiveness from the bride, the singer and the congregation of the wedding, who were not only subjected to the worst ever rendition of any Rod Stewart song ever, although actually it's a Van Morrison song which Rod had a hit
Oh,
with.
really?
Including some versions by Rod I've heard myself, says Andrew. But also heard some passionately expressed expletives from outside the little private chapel. Steve, you thing, how dare you thing, put me in this position. Next time I see, this is not the language you expect to hear at someone's holy matrimony. And of course, absolution from your good selves and wise selves would be a very nice thing. Well, we'll see where we go. I think Sister Susie, who is going away for a while, is going to be. I think you're feeling generous. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, yeah. Well, Andrew, I think Andrew's been rather generous asking for forgiveness, really, because I don't think any of this was his fault. I think it was Steve's fault. I think Steve should be asking for forgiveness because clearly he didn't make it clear where they were meeting, so that's the first error. A bit more information about how he was going to get to the chapel also might have helped, and therefore he would have been able to assess whether he could take his electric keyboard and piano or not. And yeah, I think maybe he could apologise and ask for forgiveness for it being terrible, but hey, you did your best. So I am feeling in a forgiving mood, Andrew, so I'm going to forgive you.
Brother from another guest.
I mean, yes, Susie's right that Andrew has nothing to be forgiven for here. He did everything right. Everyone else was making mistakes all around him. I've got to say, I took against the wedding party as soon as it involved them crossing their private lake on the private boat to get to the private chapel. Little bit of news for you. If you're having one of those weddings, everyone else hopes something goes wrong. Sorry, I know you've been planning it for ages and it's cost thousands, but we're all secretly hoping something goes wrong. So, yes, definitely forgiven. Unlucky.
Yes.